Welcome back to Something in the Wilderness. In each episode, we look at one song of Andrew McMahon's and dig into it a little bit. If you're a fan of his, you know he's been writing and recording music for over 20 years. Well, today, we're going back to the beginning, more than 20 years ago. Before the days of YouTube, the pre-streaming era, when you had to get your news from either the TV or the radio, and every single newsworthy thing that happened wasn't constantly at our fingertips. It's pretty overwhelming nowadays. Sometimes it's as if we know too much. Or a better way to put it is probably that we have too much information coming at us all of the time. And as it's been for a long time, most of the news isn't good. Something Corporate's first EP on Drive-Thru Records came out in the fall of 2001, just a month after the September 11th attacks on our nation. They had a single off of that first EP that was making waves on modern rock radio, but that song's not the subject of this episode. I'll get to that one eventually. But due to the pressure of the success of that single, the band were continuing to write songs that fall and putting together some of their older materials well for what would be their first official album release the following spring. There were certainly a lot of factors and life experiences that were influencing Josh and Andrew's songwriting during this time, but one factor may have been what was happening in the news and the questions or the fears that were arising among the American public based on the September 11th attacks. So let's take a look at a song that was never a single, never released on another album, EP, or live album, and is almost always overshadowed by other great songs on a pretty memorable album overall. But before I jump into it, though, I just want to touch on some good news that's out there right now. Andrew McMahon has embarked on his first actual full tour in nearly 2 years, and so far, things seem to be going really well. I do want to give a shout out to Lisa and Stephanie at the AM Chalk Instagram account for posting pictures and short videos to give us just a small taste of what to expect on this tour. Follow them on Instagram, that's AM_chalk, and if you can, donate to their Dear Jack fundraising campaign to thank them, and of course because it's a good cause. And the other good news is that so far, the members of the band and the crew have remained COVID-free due to the safety protocols they've been following. This tour does look different than in years past, but it would be excellent if they all stayed healthy so they can finish the entire tour together. All right, so speaking of good news, that's the name of the song we're discussing today. The band is Something Corporate. It's track 10 on Leaving Through the Window, released on May 21st, 2002. This song, along with the rest of the album, was produced by Jim Wirt, played by Andrew McMahon on piano and vocals, Josh Partington and William Tell on guitar, Kevin Clutch Page on bass, and Brian Ireland on drums. The band recorded this album in January of 2002, which was just a few months after September 11th. Though that event took place almost exactly 20 years ago from the time of this recording, those of us who remember that time remember exactly where we were and how that felt when we found out. It was scary, caused a lot of panic and anxiety, and then there was also confusion and the unknown of what would come next. These overarching issues would make their way into a lot of the songwriting for years to come. Even if the songs weren't blatantly referencing the event, my favorite songs that were directly inspired by 9/11 are Believe by Yellowcard, and there's 2 songs by Boxcar Racer, Watch the World and Elevator. But there was a lot of music that would come out the following year that had this feeling of sadness, confusion, and anxiety about what was happening in the world at the time. I think we've seen a similar trend in current music, and will continue to for a while considering the pandemic that's been gripping our world for 18 months. Similarly, it's an event that's changed how we live, and also has caused a lot of stress and anxiety on a lot of people, and for some people worse. And since musicians are human too, they're writing songs about how they've been feeling during this time. I do think the song I'm talking about today was inspired by the events in September of 2001. And for those of you that remember, the big news for the months and years after the attacks was how the United States should respond, or even retaliate for them. There was so much unknown at the time. I would compare that time in looking at the news to what we now call doom scrolling. Though we didn't have the means to doom scroll back then, it was still difficult to escape the news that was coming at us all the time, and what it would mean for us and for all people. Though I didn't know it when I selected this song for this week's episode, I've now discovered another Something Corporate track of which there's no evidence of ever being performed live. So once again, if you have any audio or video, or you've witnessed firsthand the band performing this one live, I'd love to hear from you. And once again, this song does seem like a song you would hear live, considering the piano lead-in at the beginning and how it becomes a pretty heavy song during the chorus. To me, it seems like it would have been the right choice to re-energize the crowd in the middle of a set. But again, I'm left wondering here. There must have been a reason they didn't play this one. And additionally, maybe there's a reason that Andrew's never played it since the days of Something Corporate. So when I hear Andrew say he's going to play some deep cuts on the current tour, I'm still waiting for him to bust out something like this one that's never been played before. But that's just me dreaming. It is hard to even speculate where Andrew drew his inspiration from on this song, because there's virtually no information about this song on the internet, except the lyrics and the original recording of the song itself, of course. Though I do hear references in the lyrics to a girl who's struggling to understand what's happening in the world around her. She can't stop watching or listening to the news, and it's paralyzing her with anxiety, probably to the point of emotional breakdown. I think some of us can relate to that this past year. I know that Andrew said in several interviews over the years that he just writes what he sees, thinks, and feels at any point in his life, so that every song and every album are just reflections of who he is at that time. I'm unsure of whether the girl or the woman he's referencing is fictional in the song. It could be something he saw in his mother, his sister, his girlfriend, or even a character in a movie or TV show for all I know. But another possibility is that these are feelings and thoughts and actions that he was having. It's hard to tell, though, because he talks about a she and also speaks in first person at times, using the pronouns I and me. But we'll come back to that in a minute. I'll be the first to admit, I hadn't given the instrumentation of this song much attention until I started preparing for this episode. But it truly has that classic Something Corporate sound in every way. Although it turns into one of the heavier songs on the album, the piano lead-in could trick you into thinking it's going to be a ballad. But if you removed all the other instruments, or maybe this was just redone with acoustics and slowed down, I could absolutely hear this one as a ballad. Can you imagine it? I think it could have the impact of something like Walking By or Letters to Noel. Don't get me wrong, though, I do want this song to be a rocker. I don't think the other instruments are easily replaceable either. In fact, I really appreciate the power of the drums in this song. There's this repetitive tick-ticking during the verses, which I think really serves a purpose to the theme of the song overall. The time is passing, she's sitting in her room, paralyzed by the state of the world around her. The pre-chorus is where the instruments all come together, including the crunchy guitar riffs, reminding you that you're listening to a pop-punk album. I've read some reviews of this album, some good, some bad, but one of them briefly compares the chorus of Good News to the chorus of Punk Rock Princess. But I think that comparison only holds merit with the music style itself. Otherwise, it's a completely different song. And again, those drums really give the song its power during the chorus. I also love the distortion in the riffs in the second verse. It's almost treated like this residue left over from the chorus, reminding you of what's coming back again. After the second chorus, though, this song musically just keeps punching almost right until the end, till they fade out to just the piano, almost right back to where the song started. I love that. I think the most powerful lyrics come in the chorus, implying that somehow avoiding the evils of the world or learning about the pain that other people are experiencing keeps you innocent or naive or something like that. Most of us think of our childhood as this more magical time of our lives where anything seemed possible, and we heard about all these good things around us, but most of us were a bit more sheltered from the horrors of the world. And if you weren't, I'm truly sorry. But I think the character or characters in the song, now that they're growing up, they're learning that there are truly terrible things out there that happen to good people. And also, some of these terrible things could happen to you or I, or to those that we love, at some point. And for those of us who do try to view the world from a bigger picture perspective, it's just painful in general to know that so many people are suffering or feeling disconnected, disenfranchised, discriminated against, hurting, suffering from loss or sickness. So it's no wonder that the character or characters in the song would prefer not to know what they know now and go back to when things were simple. I think a lot of us feel this way a lot of the time. In fact, as a parent, it sort of pains me to see as my children grow older and learn more about the world, and we do carefully share some of it with them, but we don't let them watch the news or read it on the internet. They're just too young to understand a lot of it. But they're learning slowly that the world can be a painful and scary place, more for some people than others. Andrew was probably 18 or 19 when he wrote this song, so I think of the verses about being an adolescent, struggling by themselves to process the world around them. Lyrics like, she's trapped inside her room, I'm torn between myself, my radio, my friends. These days you could probably replace the radio with phone. My castles are falling. She stands a stranger in her skin. These words consume her, but they never set her free. And of course, referring back to something I said a moment ago, toward the end, Andrew sings, I want to read Good News. I want to be a little kid again. Then a bit later, he says, I want to go to sleep at night again. Adolescence is a pretty tumultuous time. A lot changes so fast in those years. You remember, or maybe you're going through it right now. It's just such a weird time of your life. And then there's the line, "But nothing good is happening," that ends the chorus and is the final line of the song. And ending a song like that might leave us wonder, how did the character or characters in the song turn out? Are they okay now? My favorite part of the song isn't in the lyrics, though. For this one, I really have to go with the piano intro. I think it's a perfect intro to a song, and it's really representative of the sound of something corporate during that time period. And hey, did you know that New Found Glory has their own song about the news on their Catalyst album that came out almost exactly 2 years after Leaving Through the Window? New Found Glory's song is called "No News is Good News." Even though their song is a bit more tongue-in-cheek with the lyrics, they do have similar themes of feeling discouraged and overwhelmed by the news we see and hear. And arguably, they take a little bit more of a punk rock attitude toward it, leaning more into this idea that we can't let the media control what we think. Read the news from reputable sources, but form your own opinion. But that's easier said than done. Anyway, I'd recommend the song. It's one of my favorites by New Found Glory. Well, Good News by Something Corporate's definitely one of those songs that after researching it and listening to it more than I usually do, I appreciate even more. So when someone asks me what my favorite Something Corporate songs are, or even my favorite Andrew songs are, it does change a little bit with each of these episodes, and each of my experiences with the music, such as sharing it with someone else, or seeing songs performed live, or something else entirely. Thank you all for listening. I love hearing from you, and I'd like to finally announce the winner of the t-shirt contest. Thank you to everyone who left a review at Apple Podcasts or elsewhere, and if you'd like to help out, please still feel free to leave a review. The winner of the t-shirt is Allie. So Allie, I'll be reaching out to you soon on Instagram. If any of you out there listening would like to guest on a future episode, email me at somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com or message me on social media. We have an Instagram, Facebook page, Twitter feed, and YouTube channel. And remember, I know it doesn't seem like it sometimes, but there is always good news happening. We just have to work a little harder to find it sometimes.